greatest sports debate show on the internet.
I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh yeah, that's right. It was me.
Championship rings. Starring Brandon Lewis.
Wait a minute, who's the one that didn't see Brandon Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then that's when they say, it's an interception!
And Jojo.
Honestly, I'd rather watch AHL All-Star stuff than the NBA All-Star game.
Hands down.
Man, Josh, if we thought last week's show was massive, this week, not only do we have the NBA Playoffs and WrestleMania, but we have the NFL Draft this week, which means we had to bring on Show Sean Fitzgerald to help us here in the first 30 minutes talking about draft.
Hey, glad to be on, man. It's been a while, Josh. It's been a while.
It really has. You know, I'll tell you this. Most of the recent seasons with the NFL Draft, I've been really invested and, interested. That's not the case this season. I don't know why, but for some reason, I don't have that same juice, that same level of interest for this year's draft that I've had in the past.
I can answer that for a very good reason, because it goes hand in hand, because I think everybody feels the same way. Number one, it's not a quarterback draft, and quarterbacks are sexy, and that's what people talk about. But the second reason is this.
That's what I want. I want wide receiver.
Well, the second reason is this. It's a good receiver draft. I would say it's not a, oh my God, receiver draft.
Yeah.
The other thing is this. It's a big people draft. It's an offensive line and a defensive line draft. And for those of you like me who are 5'3", who for some reason like watching big people beat each other up, you're into this draft because trenches win football games. So this may not be the most sexiest draft of all time, but I do think there's going to be a lot of football players in this draft that's going to win a lot of teams' football games. Maybe not next year, but in the future.
Yeah. Is this going to be like the draft from when the Kansas City Chiefs took Eric Fisher #1 overall?
No, it's not going to be
like
that.
One.
I would compare it more towards the Aiden Hutchinson, the guy who went #1.
Or what about the Myles Garrett draft to a degree? That one.
Yeah, but that one at least had Mahomes. It had Watson.
Mitch Trubisky.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, let's get right to it. We're not going to do a full mock draft. If you want to check out the entire Voltage Live Teams mock draft, make sure you go to voltagelivemedia.org. Our mock draft did drop this morning, but we are going to take it by sort of a question team by team basis. And we got to start off with really where the draft starts this year, because we all know Fernando Mendoza's going #1 to the Las Vegas Raiders. The draft really starts here at #2. The consensus is the Jets are taking a defensive edge. It's just nobody can really until Thursday night about 8:15 Eastern qualify which one it's going to be.
Which I like this, because normally I feel like when it comes to the Jets, we hear a lot of noise out of that building and people have a sense of who they're going to be taking. This year, you're not really getting all that noise. Nobody really knows who they're taking. I feel like this is a good culture change for the Jets.
It definitely is a refreshing take just to see, we don't know anything. And particularly, Brandon, I don't know if you remember when we were back at BSR in 2018. Hugh Jackson was the one who basically leaked out the Baker Mayfield stuff. I think they informed him, and then that's when it started coming out during that day of the draft or so.
I think it was
a lot of us thought Darnold was going to be the pick, and I was, really on the Darnold train, but I've never been against Baker. But this is one of those scenarios where it's like, man, this is kind of fun. Nobody knows.
So I do think there is a little bit of an inkling out of the Jets camp, which was about a week ago. They decided to cancel the visit of David Bailey. And some people have taken that two different ways. Some people said, oh, they have all the information. They're taking David Bailey. They don't need to bring him in. My takeaway is, I think if you wanted the guy, I think you would have brought him into the building. And I do think the Jets already have their guy selected. And I agree with Christian Hidden, who had this pick for the Jets in our Voltage Live mock draft. I think it is going to be Arvell Reese, the defensive end out of Ohio State, who was really more of a Micah Parsons type. He can play linebacker. He can play defensive end. And listen, the Jets defense had a defensive head coach last year, and they were bad. They didn't have an interception all season long. To me, I know everybody likes David Bailey. They think he's the best pure pass rusher in the draft. But I think Arvell Reese has more upside. And I think Aaron Glenn's looking at this like, we're probably going to win 2 games, and I may not even be here next year anyway. Might as well take the guy with the best upside and see if he can help us out.
Yeah, and that's where I see it as a Buckeyes fan. Like, it definitely feels like that would be the way. I think there's probably going to be 4 guarantees in the first round. I think there might be a defensive tackle. Caden McDonald maybe in the later half of the round. But there's something I wanted to bring up, Brandon. This is something that was in the Where Things Stand NFL series for part 4. One of the Jets players spoke out about just the culture. It was defensive tackle Harrison Phillips, and Phillips said the following. It was Glenn inheriting what he called, being Phillips, a very cancerous, truculent group, whole top to bottom. And when you know how to use the word truculent like that, you know how to use the word truculent. That is a very smart man. So I think, especially now that you've got a lot of, and I'm not saying it's Sauce Gardner or anyone, but it seems like they got a lot of problems out of the building from what we know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for them to go defensive, but I will say this. Not that I would justify going Ty Simpson number 2 overall, but if you just have Garrett Wilson, you don't have anything for defense.
They got Breece Hall still, right?
Breece Hall is still there. They just franchise tagged him.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's
no, I'm talking in terms of wide receivers. Besides Garrett Wilson, who else is there that really scares you?
Now,
Nobody.
obviously, Josh, I think your argument would make more sense next year if they had a quarterback, because there's a certain Ohio State guy at wide receiver who may be the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
He could honestly be, even depending on which team ends up there.
And that would be ironic if it was the Jets, because they were the last team to take a wide receiver number 1 overall in Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, geez, what year was that again?
I think 93. I could be wrong on that, but I think it was 93.
Granted, I do agree that I think the Jets will go Arvell Reese, but it's interesting you bring up David Bailey, and I'll get to where I think he should go when we get to another question within this NFL draft topic. But, if he goes to the Jets, it would make sense, but I think he fits better with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. Obviously, Tennessee could go running back with Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I am still with the belief that they are going to take a defensive player. I personally think that one of a Caleb Downs or a Sonny Styles, one of the Ohio State players, will probably end up with Tennessee. That would be my guess. I had Sonny Styles going there in my personal mock draft because of Robert Saleh, because of the Fred Warner connection in San Francisco and wanting that middle linebacker connection. But, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting to see where Arizona goes, because in our Voltage Live mock draft, we had Caleb Downs going there. It was just like, I thought he was the best player available at that spot for Arizona, and then got Tennessee right after. Like, that's
a
where
lot
it gets
of people,
interesting.
A lot of people think that Arizona is going defense. I actually think that they would go offensive line. And if I'm taking Mo Aluga, the right tackle / guard, out of Miami. Because my takeaway is you're going to be bad next year, right? You're going to be 4th in the NFC West. And I feel the same way about the Jets. they're going to be bad next year. They're going to be fourth place in the AFC East. The Jets already have their bookend tackles for the next decade. They took the kid out of Penn State a couple years ago, and then they took the kid out of Missouri, Metabu, last year. With Arizona, my takeaway is, why don't you get your offensive line anchored? Because next year you're going to be at the top of the draft. You're going to take a quarterback.
My main thing was this, is just how much longer is Budda Baker going to be an elite safety?
Well, my counter argument to that is what's a more important position, offensive line or safety?
Well, if you don't have a quarterback and you're not a tank for Manning, then that's probably...
So I've heard a lot of reports recently that Arizona is actually trying to trade out of the number 3 overall pick. But if they stay there, they might actually go with Jeremiah Love.
That I don't buy. I think it's a smoke screen because they're trying to get some.
That's definitely that smells like smoke screen to me, especially in smoke screen season. No one knows, but there's a smoke screen there.
Speaking of trading, one of the teams that has been on the list of teams that could possibly move up, and I'll be honest, I don't get why. As even a fan of a rival team in the NFCs, I actually think 12 and 20, where Dallas is at, they are in a perfect spot to grab 2 defensive players, whether it's a linebacker / safety and a corner, and that's what they need. Their offense is set. They don't need any more offensive pieces. You can make an argument they may need a running back later in the draft, but they really don't with how good their offense has been. They need to really solidify that defense, and I don't even know, unless it's for Sonny Styles, which, again, I like, but I don't think a linebacker is necessarily a position you move up 5, 6, 7 spots for. I think this would be it'd be an interesting move from Jerry Jones, but it would be a move outside of the norm from the last decade.
Yeah, and especially with the Browns being the most connected team, because the popular framework, or one of them, has been, the Browns would end up in a potential trade scenario getting the 3 first-round picks, going to 12, 20, and then keep 24 or whatnot, but they'd give up their second-round pick, which is what doesn't make sense to me. I feel like if Dallas is trying to hike up the board, make them, pay up the Pied Piper if I were, a general manager. So I don't know what the exact fascination with Styles is. Obviously, he's a really, really good defensive football player, but we saw last year, as of right now, the Browns reap the benefits of James Gladstone just moving up for Travis Hunter, because right now he's going to be primarily on defense at least to start the 2026 season whenever he gets his campaign going. And that was, he may have overpaid, and we'll see, at least 1 year in, the returns look more favorable for Cleveland, but could end up flip-flopping down the road.
I mean, with Dallas, you also have to think about the fact that the Giants have 2 first-round picks. Washington is sitting there at number 7. Cleveland makes the most sense if you want to trade up, because then you're right in between the Giants and the Commanders, and you could possibly get the guy that Washington wanted, so then you don't have to face whoever it is twice a season.
I think if Tennessee takes Jeremiah Love at 4, it's actually more likely Dallas moves up, because I think if he's there at 7, Washington would take him. Yeah. I don't see the Giants taking him at 5, and I obviously don't see the Browns taking him at 6. So to me, if he's going at 4, Washington would take a defensive player. At that point, then, does Dallas, to your point, Josh, try to move in between the Giants and the Commanders? Because I think we all acknowledge Giants are probably going defense with at least the pick at 5. We'll see what they do at pick 10. There's rumors out there that they could go receiver at 10. I think Dallas, again, to me, you could try that if you're Dallas, but I think either way, the board is falling to you where you're going to get 2 pretty good defensive players anyway.
Right, but again, what if you want the same player that Washington wants? Or when the Giants are back on the clock, what if the player they want is still there? you could throw a monkey wrench in their plans.
I think I get where you're coming from, especially since I don't think the Chiefs are going to trade down if one of their preferred wide receivers is there or their preferred one. I thought, but we'll find out because again,
if I'm Dallas, they're almost guaranteed to get the first or second best corner, sitting at 12, which is what they need. Because I think Kansas City or Miami, I think one of them will take a corner. I don't think both of them will take a corner. So either they're going to get McCoy, who has the injury concerns coming out of Tennessee, he tore his ACL, or they can get Lamar, the kid out of LSU, who many people think is the best corner, and some mocks have him sitting there for Dallas to be taken at 12.
See, I had McCoy going number 5 overall to the Giants because when you think about it, the Giants are in the NFC, and you look around the conference, you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, you got Puka Nacua, and amongst other great wide receivers. So you need to bolster up that back end of your defense. And so the best way to do that is to go out and get a cornerback or a safety.
See, my takeaway is Caleb Downs is the better player. If he's there at 5, which I suspect he will be, that's who the Giants are taking.
No, I understand what you're saying. But, McCoy was in the SEC where a lot of the premier wide receivers are. So,
but I doubt you're going to spend a top 5 pick on someone who literally did not play a snap of football last year because he's coming off an ACL injury.
I mean, that's true. Outside, what was it? Jamar Chase just sat out a season at LSU.
Yeah, and that was because of COVID, but he wasn't hurt.
Right, yeah. That's why I was just double checking because I don't think he was hurt.
This sort of leads to our next question, which is, which team are you most interested in? This could be like a one-pick perspective, a team that you're watching. Maybe there's a guy that you think could be impactful. Josh, I know this is one of the questions that you posed. So did you want to start with this one?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 teams I'm really interested in. Both of them only have 1 pick in the first round, and that would be the Tennessee Titans and the Carolina Panthers. With Tennessee, if Jeremiah Love is there, do you draft him and get more help for Cam Ward? Or do you go to the other side of the ball and go get David Bailey if he's still sitting there? Because you mentioned it earlier. Saleh comes from the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the defensive coordinator, and he had Fred Warner, who I viewed as kind of the captain of that 49ers defense. When you look at Texas Tech's defense from last season, David Bailey kind of took on that same role for the Red Raiders. So it feels like a natural connection for them to go with David Bailey. But again, if you want to help out your young quarterback, maybe you go and get the running back, Jeremiah Love. So that's why I'm interested in Tennessee. And it's kind of the same thing with Carolina. We think Bryce Young has now turned a corner, but we're not 100% sure. He definitely took a step forward last season, so I'll give him his credit. But again, they lost not Tedoroa McMillan. They lost Rico Dowdle. There we go. In free agency. But I don't think there's a second running back that you could justify using the 19th overall pick on.
Not in the first round. Jeremiah Love will probably be the only back that goes in on Thursday night.
It's unlikely we're going to see anyone else among that running back they're drafted.
So again, with Carolina, it makes most sense to go with the defensive side of the ball. But again, maybe they decide we need to bolster our offensive line. So it's kind of the same reason with both Tennessee and Carolina for me. But for some reason, those 2 teams, even though they stick out, it's because of their young quarterbacks. Do they try and help them, or do they bolster their defensive side?
Fitz, I'll let you go.
Well, I would love to just do the whole Browns and Chiefs wide receiver thing. Here's what was interesting with the Chiefs is they acquired that extra first-round pick in the deal that sent out Trent McDuffie to the Rams, and the Rams still have a first-round pick for the first time in ages from a deal they had previously done with the Atlanta Falcons. I wonder if, depending on what anything happens with Matthew Stafford, I know he's coming back this year, but you have to look and invest in the future. Does it make sense if Sean McVay falls in love with Ty Simpson? Is that maybe a potential landing spot? It's something that just came to mind within the last couple of days. I'm thinking,
Not at
maybe.
13th
It's like,
overall.
well, they
one,
don't pick again for a little while because, again, they traded the other pick to Kansas City, their own original pick.
well, one, if he falls in love with Ty Simpson, I think it's a mistake. I don't see Ty Simpson being a franchise quarterback. I'm going to throw that out there right now.
It's tough to say because compared to one of the quarterbacks from last year, I didn't get the same kind of like dread sense or, the gut punch, as I like to call it. But it doesn't mean it's a guarantee that he's going to be successful either. But you do have to at least at some point in this draft, if you're McVay, you need to plan for life after Stafford.
Well, here's my takeaway, Fitz. If Micaiah Lennon is there at 13 from USC, they're running to the podium and submitting that pick because I think that they are actually planning for a life after Puka Nacua.
Yeah,
I think that there is a scenario where this offseason they could trade Puka, they could get an additional first-round pick, and next year in a much better quarterback class, that's when you looking at your potential successor.
And he's also had a few off-field, things that have came up. And look, anyone will try to get a product like that as long as they don't turn into Antonio Brown right away. But to keep it more serious here, it's definitely something. And I do think if there is a absolute floor in the first round for Simpson, it would be the Dolphins at 30. Otherwise, I think he'll slide to either Arizona or someone else who's willing to trade up into the mid-30s.
I don't think Arizona is going to take a shot. I don't think really any of these quarterback needy teams are going to take a shot.
That's what's weird is because it just feels like the exact same thing with Will Levis.
The one team that I think would be like Pittsburgh, obviously, though I don't think it's going to be in round one. I will say this, and I promise you this is not a cop-out because they are my favorite team. But I am interested to see what my Eagles do on Thursday night because there's a lot of scenarios that one Howie Roseman can go. And we know Howie is a very shrewd operator when it comes to the draft. We know that he obviously loves his SEC players in Alabama and Georgia. There is the Georgia linebacker, C.J. Allen. There's the Alabama offensive lineman, Proctor. There's obviously some thoughts that they could go wide receiver. Obviously, my argument has been if you are trading A.J. Brown to New England or somewhere else, if you take a wide receiver, you lose almost any leverage you have if you take one in the first round. So the guy I really want, and I can't say his name, so I'll just say it, the safety from Toledo.
Oh, that one.
I want to pair
Emmanuel McNeil Warren.
Yeah. I want to pair him with Quinyon Mitchell. I'd also be happy with taking Dylan Thyman from Oregon and having two white defensive backs and Cooper DeJean and Dylan Thyman.
I had
the Vikings taking McNeil Warren because Harrison Smith's not going to be a football player forever, and there is some little bit up in their status with him over there.
By the way, Fitz, I had to correct you in your write-up because they've already designated him as a post-June 1st cut.
Oh, they did?
Yes. So he's not even going to be a Viking.
I had Daniil Simon going to the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you did as well. So, that's something that I would look at for Philly. Again, do they go with the Wayne Johnson replacement? Reed Blankenship is now a Texan. You got to fill that safety hole. Again, I think they can go wide receiver later in the draft. If they do by chance take one, it's obviously a signal that A.J. Brown is for sure being traded, but I wouldn't lose any of that leverage.
I should be interested.
There is one more team that is going to make me curious, though. What do the Buffalo Bills do?
My takeaway is, if I'm Buffalo, A lot of people say that they should go defense, obviously to boost up that defense. But if he is still there, which I don't know, again, Philly could take him. If Omar Cooper is sitting there, if I'm Buffalo, I just take him.
Yeah.
I think I know that they have DJ Moore now. I know Khalil Shakir is there, but Joe Brady is an offensive guy. And we
I was
talked
still a little
about
shocked that they got DJ Moore in a trade this offseason, but hey, that's at least a reliable target.
It is, but most Super Bowl teams, even Seattle, Philadelphia the year before that, Kansas City, they have multiple receiving targets now. Most teams have a 1A and a 1B that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. I think Buffalo, I know they have Shakir, and I know they got the two tight ends in Kincaid and Knox. To me, you just go all in on offense. You almost do what the Bengals do, where you just double down. F it. Our defense isn't very good. Let's just try to outscore you.
Mm-hmm.
I should be more interested in what my hometown team, the Cleveland Browns, are going to do, but I'm really not. You know, like, the Browns are one of the teams that have 2 first-round picks. They're owned at number 6, and of course at number 24, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Because of the Jacksonville Jaguars trade. But for some reason, the Browns don't really interest me that much. Could I see them possibly going Cardinal Tate at number 6? Yeah.
That's something I really like, because I think if you do go with a quarterback in next year's draft, if you're the Browns and you take Tate, I think you already have, an able-bodied target.
I agree.
And I have concerns about Jordan Tyson with his measurements, and I think Mekhi Lemon is the perfect fit for Kansas City to regain their explosive edge on offense.
See, I completely disagree with you on Kansas City.
Oh, really?
I don't see how they go offense in the first round. You are picking number 9 overall. When are you going to ever pick number 9 overall again?
That's what's interesting, and that's why I know, you're rarely going to get a chance like this if you're the Chiefs.
My point is this, though, Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver for them. Is it a need? Maybe.
Yes.
No, it's not. They have
Xavier Worthy
right.
and
they have Xavier Worthy. It might be a need. It's not a guaranteed need. You know what is a guaranteed need? Pass rusher.
That is true.
So
I just am worried about either health or suspensions with some of those Kansas City wide receivers.
But guess what Andy Reid is? Andy Reid's an offensive guy. They can draft receivers. They can figure it out. They have Mahomes. They don't need to spend. If they didn't have any receivers, you could make that argument. They have enough guys. They don't have a defensive lineman next to Chris Jones.
Yeah.
At all. And that's what hurt them.
Yeah. If I can
My other question with the Chiefs, though, would be this. A lot of people are connecting the tight end out of Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq, to the Baltimore Ravens.
There's no way they're taking a tight end. Exactly to my point. They are going defense. I will be shocked. The only way that they go offense is if they take a lineman. I will be shocked if they take a skill position player at 9. At 29, maybe. But at 9, to me, they're taking either a corner or, especially if David Bailey or Reuben Bain. If either one of those guys are there, they're taking one of those players.
Bain may drop. If I'm not mistaken, there was some stuff that came out.
Well, there's concern about his arm length, very similar to Will Campbell, which did show up.
I do believe there was an arrest, though, recently, and I can't remember all the details, but it was. But I wanted to go back to a point that Josh was making, because I can't speak for all Browns fans, can't speak for Josh necessarily. I feel similarly with Cleveland. I think it has to do with the Deshaun Watson fatigue, and it's come back.
Oh, I just call him number 4. I don't even like to say his name.
Preferably, yeah. But there's also just been, I forget how old you are, Josh. I think we're close in age, and outside of, and I don't include the very first Pittsburgh playoff game where Cleveland lost in the early 2000s, because that's something I cannot personally remember from my own brain, right? I've only seen 3 winning seasons in my lifetime, and I only had one of them when I was a kid, and it's just been constant tear down. And when a good thing just seems to start happening, and there's other things that, I've been able to learn, or other things that have been reported that it just gets nauseating at one point or another for some. And it's just, when you've got a good baseball team and you've got a good basketball team that's up 2-0 in the first round of the playoffs, you should be paying attention to them, is how I view it personally. And why should I invest my time in a team that's just continued to fail and fail and fail again?
All right, guys, we got to move on. Let's talk about the great running back of this class, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. We sort of spoke about this a little bit earlier, so I don't think we'll spend a ton of time here, especially because we got to run through some of these other questions. I think it's obvious. It's either going to be Tennessee or Washington. And every leak and every report out there is telling you it's going to be Tennessee. So that's where I'm inclined to believe he will eventually land, but I still think there's an outside chance it could be with the Commanders.
I do think there's a smaller chance that he does land with Cleveland, and I know this was something that Aaron Goldhammer was getting slammed about. I understood his logic, and while I don't think it's going to be that, let me just ask you this question, just yes or no, and then I'll follow up after that. If you were guaranteed Love to be basically a CMC type of back, you would take him, yes or no?
That's
to both
because
of you.
I have Judkins already. If I
That's
didn't
what I'm
have,
worried about, is that what was it, an ankle injury or just an injury to his lower leg? I feel like we've had a couple of backs in recent years where they've looked good. I don't know. I just feel a little worried. I shouldn't, but I just have this little thing in my gut. I'm like, why do I feel so worried about it?
I'm not against having two running backs. What I am against is having two running backs when you have no offensive line and no other skill position players.
That's why I'm saying, though, if he's a CMC type, he could fill in more as a receiver type, while Judkins would be your main back. That's where I don't think it's going to happen, but that's where I think the logic at least makes some level of sense.
That's the other thing. To Josh's point, I love Dylan Sampson. I actually liked him more than Judkins coming out, and they did not use him proproperly, in my opinion.
I was honestly more like, I was higher on Travion Henderson than Judkins, but I'm like, hey, they got one of the two. I
thought Dylan Sampson was one of the best backs in the draft last year, and I just think he wasn't used to his potential properly. Maybe that's my mistake. I like him a lot, and I think because you drafted two running backs last year, you're going to draft another one this high?
I think it just depends. Again, I doubt it happens, but I at least could see the logic. So I think people should at least give those who are like, I want Jeremiah Love, a little bit of slack. But again,
I'll give the logic if you trade back, not at 6 for this specific team.
Yeah.
Well, for Tennessee,
it's a hard sell.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Josh.
So again, I've heard reports in the last couple days that Arizona could be a landing spot for him. Whether that's smokescreen or not remains to be seen, because I've also heard they're trying to trade out of it at number 3. But with that report, if I'm Washington, maybe I try and trade up to number 3 to get in front of Tennessee so that I can get Jeremiah Love, get Jaden Daniels, another threat, so teams can't just load the box against him. And again, like I said earlier, that means Dallas has to go against him twice a season. It means New York has to go against him twice a season. And I'm only using Dallas and New York in this particular case. I know Philly is also in the division, but I'm only mentioning Dallas and New York because New York is at number 5. Dallas could possibly move up. We just talked about that. So that's the only reason I'm not including Philly.
Yeah, if I'm a Commanders fan, if I move up, I actually would prefer it not to be for Jeremiah Love. If I'm moving up, I want Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles. Because
I think Arizona could take a guy like him and he can play a little bit of a hybrid role. I think Arizona is going to be really interesting as to where Caleb Downs will end up going. I think whatever position they pick is going to really dictate the rest of the board.
Which leads us to our next question, by the way, because as to who will be the biggest steal of the first round, I think it potentially could be Caleb Downs. Because I think there's a scenario where he slides. And by slide, I mean he could slide all the way to Dallas at 12, which was where he was initially drafted. I don't think he gets past that, but there is some talk that he could be the guy because some people don't know if he's going to be a Kyle Hamilton type that can play linebacker, safety, corner. I think
he's a dynamic player.
I think he'd be a perfect guy for like John Harbaugh, who obviously had Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. I think they're very similar players. So, but I mean, I think out of the three big Ohio State defenders, Downs, Reeves, and Styles, Downs is going to be the third guy taken, I would think.
Yeah, Downs, I think Downs maybe has the highest ceiling from my perspective, along with Reese. Styles is definitely going to be solid. It's just tough because if he slides, I don't think he gets past Dallas. He's such a really good talent that he can probably play a little bit of that hybrid linebacker role too. You have a guy who's, pardon me, kind of like a jack of all trades. And that's something invaluable given that, especially, I don't know if you realize this, Brandon and Josh, we're reaching the point where rookie scale contracts prior to the 2011 CBA are now reaching the point from 2010 and before where the first overall pick is getting about 55, 60 plus million guaranteed prior to fifth-year options.
So I think the biggest steal of the draft, especially if he goes to the Rams 13th overall, because we know what type of offensive genius Sean McVay is, and they have Matthew Stafford there, who's coming off of an MVP season, and the Rams made it all the way to the NFC Championship and gave the Seahawks their toughest test en route to winning Super Bowl 60. I know they have Puka and they have other offensive weapons, but if they go with Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, Sean McVay would come up with some genius ways to use him. I think it would give Stafford another weapon, and that would just make that Rams offense that much more dynamic. It would put them, again, right in the discussion for winning the Super Bowl, coming out of the NFC. If the Rams go with Sadiq, look out.
I don't know. I think they already have a pretty good tight end room between Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee are your top two options. You got Terrence Ferguson. I don't think they necessarily need a tight end. Now, could it be a luxury? Sure, but I don't think that's their biggest need right now.
Hey, Fitz, can I counter with that's the same logic I use for Kansas City?
Fair game.
I mean, Tyson makes more sense with Kansas City, though, because we've seen a lot of teams have success with multiple wide receivers, not just 1A, 1B, but if you have a solid number 2 wide receiver, it makes a difference.
My argument is the Chiefs already have 2 solid wide receivers.
Going back to Rams real quick, everyone thinks that Devontae Adams could be on the move, and I think that's just utterly stupid.
I don't think he's on the move. I think he'd be a nice compliment for this year, but I think this will be his last year. Yeah. I think what the Rams are thinking is we have one more year with Stafford, maybe McVay, by the way, because
he was almost going to walk away a few years ago.
McVay and Stafford tied together, and Devontae Adams, and maybe Puka Nacua. I think they are going all in, and if they win the Super Bowl, they may decide to blow everything up.
By the way, did you see the Rams updated their logo?
I did.
Let me see. Hold on.
It is awful. It's the same logo they've been using. It's just all yellow.
Well, while you do that, let's look at my Eagles real quick. I mentioned earlier, and there's a world out there where they take a receiver in the first round. I would personally not. Will I be okay if they do? I've already accepted the fact that AJ Brown's going to be a Patriot on about June 2nd, 2026. Josh, go ahead.
I don't think they should go wide receiver in the first round because, like you said earlier, if they do, they lose all leverage. Well, any that they have left, really. But because here's the thing with the whole AJ Brown thing, everybody's already penciling him in to go to the Patriots. We talked about the Buffalo Bills earlier. What if they try to come in and I know they traded for DJ Moore already. I know they have Shakir. But just to
That's what I just said, is for Buffalo to go after Cooper out of Indiana. Now, what I'm saying here, though, is there's no way Philadelphia trades back. They have 8 picks. I think, if anything, the Eagles may try to move up. If there's a player they like, they may try to move up.
I was saying that maybe the Bills try to trade for AJ just so he doesn't go to New England.
I doubt it. I think it's sort of a handshake agreement that he's either going to be a Patriot or he's going to be an Eagle.
But nonetheless, I agree. I don't think they'll go with wide receiver because, as I said, you lose all leverage that you have, which I don't think they have a lot anyway. But, it worked out for them with Jahad Campbell last year. Howie rarely misses when it comes to defensive selections. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go with defense. But I could also see them, like you said earlier, getting a Lane Johnson replacement.
A lot of different scenarios out there. Fitz.
Sorry, I was just looking it up because I was wondering if there was like an anniversary coming up with why LA maybe went to that gold logo. I don't think there's a round number anniversary, but I still find it hard to think that they're going to go for AJ Brown. Again, we'll find out. I think, obviously if the Eagles take a wideout, then it's pretty much almost a given. But I still think there's a world where it doesn't happen. I mean,
I think there is a small world. Obviously, there's been a lot of buzz in the news lately about the Patriots coach and a certain reporter out there.
Yeah, and man, that's
and
a dicey situation
it seems
itself.
like that's where most of the majority of this news is coming from. And then randomly on Monday, Adam Schefter comes out with 3 straight tweets basically saying the Eagles are trading AJ Brown to the Patriots on June 2nd. Which that's always been the date because you can post June 1st designated and it would be less cap room, but it's a wait and see. I do want to wrap it up with a couple of things. So let's first talk Ty Simpson. I don't think he should be a first round pick. I do think there is a high possibility, though I'm not going to say it's 100% for sure, some team is going to trade up at the end of the first round. And I don't mean it's going to be a smart team. I mean, the Jets could do it at 16 because that would be a Jets thing to do. The Dolphins, I think, are an interesting team to watch because they have
the one that I'm watching. Is that
picks.
30? Number 30. They could definitely do it.
Well, even then, if they want to move up even more, because again, they have those 4 third-round picks. I doubt they're going to use all of them. I really don't know. I think this kid. I'll be honest. I've said it all along. I think he made a mistake. I think he should have went back to school. A lot like
Dante Moore from Oregon. Dante Moore announced he was going back first. No.
Yes, he did.
Simpson, yeah. I was just trying to remember the order.
Wasn't it the same day or close to it? I think it was around.
I think it was.
I think what was it? Because it was like I think Simpson. I forget how it went, but basically I was
I'm saying, and then I think Ty Simpson's agent told him that's good news for you. Go to the draft.
Yeah. I don't think he's a first round pick, more especially for just talking true first round picks, right? I think it's a little less than 50-50 that he'll go in the first round. If there's a lot of teams that think that next year's quarterback class is going to be generational, let's just say, just for argument's sake, I don't know if you see a team trade up to take him for that first year option if you think, I can still get him for 4 years, and worst case scenario, I have to apply a tag if he works out. But, less
I can
commitment.
see Arizona doing it.
That's a team I think could do it, but I don't. Again, they could sit what? They're at 35th overall or 34th in overall, second or third pick of day 2 as of right now. So it could really go any number of ways, but I don't see a team that's going to shock us like Jacksonville did with Blake Bortles all those years ago and select him much higher than we're expecting.
For the record, I was a fan of Blake Bortles. He got into an AFC Championship game. I mean, you got to give him that.
I so wanted them to win that one, man.
So speaking of which, guys, I have been on the record, and I'm going to be wrong on this. I already am because of what we saw with the Bengals and Giants on Saturday night. But my thinking was there's going to be so many players that are going to be graded so similar in this draft. I did not think we were going to get a lot of aggressive teams because I thought teams were just going to stay pat and take who they felt was best at that spot. Now I'm starting to think we may be in for a crazy first round.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a possibility Arizona could trade out at number 3. There's a lot of reports Dallas might try to move up from number 12, like we mentioned earlier. But other than that, I don't see a scenario where a team like the Jets try to trade up from number 16 or like the Bears possibly trading up from the late 20s, because I don't think there's that one player that teams are going to be like, oh, we got to go get him.
No, like we've been talking about before, unless like a Caleb Downs slides, maybe Reuben Bain, if his arm size, is an issue and he slides, I could see the receiver Tyson. If there's probably going to be concerns about his medical, but if a team falls in love with him, maybe that's the case. If there's a run on these receivers here.
Yeah. Tyson's the one that's going to be the most interesting of the wide receivers landing because he's got a smaller catch radius, and obviously his brother Jalen plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Jalen's 6'6", but I don't know. I just feel like Jordan, he's a good football player, but I feel like he's rated a little too highly.
I also think
love it if the Browns drafted Jordan Tyson number 6 overall, because then we.
No, I hate it. If you're injured in college, you're injured in the NFL. By the way, for the record, he's a good player. He's off my draft board.
He's not anywhere near my draft board at all.
Not just because of the,
especially at 6. And by the way, Cardell Tate's the best receiver.
He is. And it's I don't get what the argument against him is, other than he's had Jeremiah Smith or XX and X. It's
here's
the
best
other thing I have is he's a Mike Evans type, not exactly for a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? But what I explained in the
I'll just add this: out of all the Ohio State receivers that have came out the last 4 or 5 years, the worst 2 might be Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave. If he is that, he is easily the Browns' best target.
He is. That's exactly why I think if they think he's the best player on the board, they should go ahead and take him. And I wonder, because there has been some fan perception, especially with all the stuff that's gone down. I wonder if this might be the time where, despite what might make sense in trading down, depending on what offers they get, if they end up sticking there and trying to address a need on draft night.
They should, but it's the Cleveland Browns. So I don't trust them to do the right thing, especially because Jimmy Haslam is our owner, and I will continue to say he is our version of Jerry Jones. The only difference between Jerry and Haslam is that Jerry gets in front of the camera, he gets on the microphone, and Jimmy Haslam doesn't do that. That's literally the only difference between the two of them.
And with that note, Fitz, this was fun. but we got to get to other stuff on tonight's show. Thank you so much for joining us as we preview the 2026 edition of the NFL Draft.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Have a good one, Fitz.
You guys too.
All right, and with that, Mr. Josh, let us transition. Let me see here. We're going to get Fitz out of there, and let's transition to the NBA because, well, the Atlanta Hawks, they stole game 2 in New York. The series is now tied 1-1. The question on the screen being, are they in control of this series? And I think without a doubt they are. I think every time you steal a game on someone's home court, you're in control of the series. They say, the series never starts until a road team wins, and that's exactly what happened here. The Knicks were in control up until the fourth quarter, and then they shrunk down the stretch, and CJ McCollum took over the game. And, the Knicks were my pick to make it out of the Eastern Conference. They mostly handled Atlanta well for 7 out of the 8 quarters in this series, but yet they're not up 2-0.
Correct. They theoretically could be down 0-2 in this series if Atlanta had a little bit better start in game 1, honestly. But if you watch that game down the stretch, who was CJ McCollum constantly seeking out on the offensive end?
The guy who said it himself, Jalen Brunson.
Yep. And they really did not make any changes defensively to try and slow down CJ McCollum at all. They didn't really switch the matchup. They didn't send any type of extra help or anything. And I was like, this guy is single-handedly killing you, and you're not making any type of adjustments.
I think it caught the Knicks off guard because all of a sudden it was like, again, they felt like they were in control of the game, and you woke up and it's a 2-point game with 2 minutes left to go.
By the way, and Kendrick Perkins said this on First Take today, and I will echo his statement. Whoever made the trade with Atlanta to send Jonathan Kuminga out of Golden State needs to be fired. Because that dude, since coming to Atlanta, he has fully, exploded. And
well, that's because he can be the number 1 or number 2 option. In Golden State, he was the number 4 option.
Yes, but he is such a dynamic player. And he is showing that. And here's the thing with Atlanta. Jalen Johnson, arguably their best player, he hasn't had, his best game yet.
I agree with that. The one thing I did notice last night, which I think will help the Knicks as series goes further, and we knew this going in, Atlanta is a small team.
Which is why, sorry for cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
Do you remember when Minnesota had success against Denver when Cat was there? It's because they were using that double big lineup with Gobert and Cat. New York should do the same thing with Mitchell Robinson and Cat.
Mitchell Robinson was dominating the boards last night, especially when Atlanta would go to their bench. I think the Knicks will be fine ultimately. I think they will end up winning this series because I don't think Atlanta has enough firepower to win 4 of the next 5. But what the Knicks have done is they've just prolonged the series.
I could see a scenario, you and I were talking about this last week where we don't think there's going to be a lot of game 7s. I don't think either of us had a series going to a game 7 in the first round.
You did. You have this series.
Okay. This is the one series that I actually think could go to a game 7. And with Atlanta winning game 2, I think it increases the chances of that actually happening.
It could. I think the pressure is all on the Knicks for game 3. If Atlanta wins game 3, then I think the only way the Knicks win the series is in 7.
I think game 3 is a must win for New York.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
If Atlanta wins game 3, I think they actually win the series.
By the way, I think you might find this funny because I was telling another friend this today. Why the NBA decided to put playoff games on Amazon Prime the night of the NFL draft is the NBA's way of saying F you to the NFL for stealing Christmas from us.
Yeah, I think that's when Cavs Raptors game 3 is, if I'm
Yes,
not
it is.
mistaken.
It is 8 o'clock on Thursday, the exact same time as the NFL draft. And by the way, the NBA, unlike the NFL, has no rules against local coverage. So people in Cleveland, they have to go on Peacock or Amazon Prime. Last night's game was a Peacock exclusive game, for God's sake.
Yeah, there's no local broadcast
No,
for the NBA playoffs.
It's horrible. And, again, I know we're talking about the NBA playoffs in general. I'm glad we got good games on Monday night, and we'll obviously talk about Minnesota and Denver here in a minute, because this weekend was 8 games and 8 blowouts.
Yes, especially Boston and Philadelphia.
Yeah. So now we go to a game that's going to take place on Wednesday. This may be the upset of the weekend, if you will. It was Orlando, a very physical team, which we know of since we faced them 2 years ago, Josh. They went into Detroit, and they did to Detroit what they did to the Cavs and JB Bickerstaff, who was now coached by the Pistons 2 years ago. And Pablo Banchero was the best player on the court tonight, and Orlando made their shots. And Detroit looked like a team that was a regular season team that's going to get exposed at some point in the postseason, even if it's not fully this series, to me.
We've seen Orlando do this to other teams in the past, notably 2019. They won game 1 against the Toronto Raptors, and we know what would go on to happen with Toronto.
I don't remember that. Wait, they won game 1 of that year? Toronto won the title?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I totally forgot about that.
Yes, they did. I think they won game 1 against Milwaukee in the bubble.
That I do remember. They did. You're right on that.
So we've seen Orlando do this. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I do think Orlando exposed something with Detroit. And, well, it wasn't that Orlando exposed it, but it was fully on display. Do you remember the biggest reason we felt like Detroit could take down New York last year was because it wasn't just Cade Cunningham. They had Malik Beasley to be that second scorer. They had Jalen Duren. But this season, they don't have that second scorer.
Well, to be fair, you thought they could take the Knicks down. I never did. I thought it was going to be a sweep. And Detroit proved me wrong and took it to 6 games. And by the way,
I was saying we as just a general statement, not specifically you and me, but
okay. But I'm saying the we does not include me, because I never thought that. I never thought the Pistons would win a playoff game or playoff series, I should say, with JB Bickerstaff as their head coach. I gave them one playoff series this year because they're facing the Magic and they are the number 1 seed and they were a great regular season team. But this is what JB Bickerstaff does in the postseason. He is not a successful head coach, and the Pistons fans are slowly learning this already in year 2 of the Bickerstaff regime.
Yeah. This might be the Pistons this season might turn out to be what the Cavs were against the Pacers last year.
I'll tell you what, this may be a hot take. If I'm the Cavs, I'd rather play Detroit than play Orlando. I don't want to play Orlando. We've seen what Orlando can do to us in a postseason game. I think Pablo Banchero, compared to Cade Cunningham, is a better player right now when healthy. And I think Orlando, with their physicality, they may not be able to shoot, but they could beat the Cavs up physically.
We did take 3 out of 4 from them in the regular season series.
We did, but I can't get that playoff series from 2 years ago out of my head. The Cavs were the significantly better team. and they took us to 7 games.
Yeah, and in that game 7, I think we were down by as many as like 19.
We were down, I think, 20 going into halftime, then had that miracle comeback in the second half. So this is a really weird one out west because about 20 minutes prior to tip-off, all of a sudden, wait, Kevin Durant's out? He has a knee injury, and reportedly it took place in practice when he dove for a ball and ran into another player, and now he's a game-time decision tonight. And Houston's offense without him looked like they had no idea what they were doing, and they have no scores. And listen, this series could have had Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron, Sengun, Ahmed Thompson, and we're missing half of those stars at this point, especially if Durant doesn't play tonight. Reportedly, he's going to give it a go. But I was shocked, even without Durant, because I realized, I said, wait a minute, Durant's not out there. I see him in street calls. Oh, okay. That's why the Lakers are winning so much. Luke Kennard had a great game. Hachimura did his thing. That's what the Lakers are going to need, is help with these role players to win this series. But if they win tonight, they got a good shot to.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they'll win both games down in Houston. I think they will split. But, you know,
well, if Durant's healthy and plays tonight and looks good and they win tonight, I don't know if the Lakers win another game of the series. I think this is really the defining game of the series.
Okay, so we were just talking about how CJ McCollum was a huge difference maker for the Hawks in game 2 against the Knicks. You know who could have used him in game 1 against the Lakers? The Houston Rockets. You know, they lose Fred VanVleet for the season, but they never really addressed their point guard issues.
No, and Ime Udoka doesn't trust Reed Shepherd for whatever reason. Basically put him in the doghouse and then decides to throw him out there whenever they need another body. Houston has had a very weird season from day one, and it's almost a fitting end of their season where it's like they went for the Tex game with Kevin Durant. Then they seemingly get over it. They go on a run. They get the 5 seed. They get to play a Lakers team who's now dealing with injuries. No Luka Doncic, no Austin Reeves. And then Kevin Durant, right on schedule, disappears.
Yep. Like, this series is just weird. And whoever wins it is probably going to lose to the Thunder in 5.
I would say 4.
If it's the Rockets, we've seen them play the Thunder tough. So I would give Houston 1 game.
All right. This, we both agreed going into the playoffs was going to be the best first round series. I said it really depended on the health of Anthony Edwards. I was a little worried about his knee injury coming into the postseason because he didn't play a lot in the back half of the regular season. But he looks healthy. He had an amazing game 2. That was a back-and-forth, topsy-turvy game last night. Denver gets out to the 19-point lead early. Minnesota closes the gap. They dominate for the most part of the second quarter. It's a back-and-forth game. Minnesota pulls away late in the fourth quarter. Out of the last 30 meetings between these two teams, they've split 15 games apiece. They really do feel like even teams, and it feels like this thing's going down to 7 games to me.
Rudy Gobert really did a fantastic job defensively on Jokic late in that game.
And the funny part is a great defensive job is like 24, 9, and 7 for Jokic.
That's true. But it comes back to the issue you and I were talking about last week, which is outside of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who's going to be that third scorer for Denver? You know,
so,
I said it.
Well, the other thing is this. What do I always tell you the NBA playoffs are about, Josh? Who is going to take and make the shot at the time to win the game in the quarter, which is the fourth quarter? And Jamal Murray had a fantastic first half last night, including a buzzer beater down the half. In the second half, he had 7 points. And in the fourth quarter specifically, he had 2 points and went 1 for 5 from the field. And I believe Jokic also only had 5 or 6 points in the fourth quarter. That's not going to get it done, especially against a Minnesota team who Denver may have Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon, but Minnesota, and we talked about this going into the series, they have Ant, they have Julius Randle, they have Rudy Gobert, they have DiVincenzo, they have DeSumo, they have Naz Reid, they have Mike Conley. They have so many guys that they can throw at you that Denver doesn't have. And that's the difference is Jokic is going to have to give you 35, 15, and 10, I feel like, or close to it.
Yeah. If Denver's going to get out of this series, they need like at least 20 from maybe both Cam Johnson and Aaron Gordon each game.
This is another travesty that this game is going to be on Amazon Prime Thursday night during the NFL draft, because you can make an argument if the Nuggets get through Minnesota and they get through San Antonio, maybe they take on OKC. Denver's the most appealing team to watch. They have the best matchups in every round of the playoffs.
Yeah. I hope we get that Denver-San Antonio second round matchup.
I still think we do. I think we go back to Ball Arena tied at 2-2. I think Denver will win Game 5, and I think that they will not let what happened to them in Game 7 2 years ago happen again. Because the crazy thing is, there have been times where the Nuggets have dominated Minnesota, and they look like the better team, but they cannot do it for long stretches.
Yeah. Because I don't think San Antonio is going to have an issue with Portland.
Portland may win Game 4 if like the Spurs want to win it on their home court, but I could really see a sweep there.
Yeah. Like honestly, Denver, Minnesota is the only real intriguing series, at least on the Western Conference side.
I would argue Lakers Rockets has some intrigue, especially if the Lakers win tonight. Then it gets intriguing.
I guess.
Because my takeaway is, if Durant comes back, if you're down 2-0, I don't think the Lakers are going to win in Houston. So if the Lakers win tonight, automatically that goes to a Game 6. And if you get into a Game 6, does Luka Doncic come back?
That's where it gets interesting. Is can the Lakers extend this series long enough to where Luka can get back? Because you look at the schedule for Lakers Rockets, the series is incredibly spread out. So
it's like that, bro. I don't like the way the NBA did these playoff series. Why are we giving more rest for first round games than we are NBA Finals games?
I don't know. Like Game 3 for Cavs Raptors is on Thursday. Why?
It's also been my argument, and I know the NBA won't do it, and I know, Josh, you've disagreed with me on this, but I'm sorry. Game 1, we had 8 blocks. Can we make the first round a best of 3? Can we give the road team, because think about what that would do. That would give a team like Phoenix, Portland, that would make them say, oh my God, we only have to steal one of the first 2 games. Then all of a sudden, Game 3, it's March Madness. And it may be the NBA, but what's the most entertaining thing about March Madness? It's one and done. Anything can happen. We've seen upsets in college basketball that we would have never expected from a D2 school against Duke. That could happen in the NBA if you made it a best of 3 series.
I don't know about best of 3, but I'm on board with like a best of 5.
Oh, I think best of 3 would be even better. Because again, think about the urgency you would have. The road team would only have to win 1 game out of the first 2. And then all of a sudden it's winner take all.
See, like I think the WNBA recently changed their playoffs so that both teams get a home game.
All right, well, Josh, last week you said that the Raptors scared you a little bit as a Cavs fan. And I said, that to remind you what you said a year ago about the Miami Heat. And then the Cavs ended up beating them by a record playoff margin. Now, last night, was a little bit closer at times than I would like. The Cavs that were mostly in control, it was like between 6 and 12, it felt like most of the night. But Toronto feels like a team, and I know that they don't have their point guard right now either, but they just feel like a team. Emmanuel Quickly. They feel like a team that's lucky to be there, and they're happy to be there. And they may win one game in Toronto, maybe even game 3, but I am not worried at all at this point about this series going 6. I think the Cavs are proving that they are the better team. I don't know if they'll sweep them. Again, you never know. Maybe Toronto steals one game, but I think a gentleman sweep at the worst here for Cleveland.
Brandon Ingram has not played well at all so far in these first 2 games. He was used more as a screener in game 1, and then all the stories come out about him saying, I want more shots and all this and that, which I think is pure ridiculousness, because if you're the all-star, you shouldn't be the one saying, oh, I need more shots. When Kawhi was there in 2019, I get that he doesn't say a lot. I understand that. But did you hear him ever say, oh, I need the ball more. I need more shots? No!
That's because Kawhi Leonard hasn't uttered one word to his teammates probably in 5 years.
But you get my point of what I'm trying to say.
I think superstars lead in different ways. And I think Kawhi Leonard is a follower. And I think for this team, Brandon Ingram needs to be a leader. And I think Brandon Ingram is clearly the best player on this Toronto team that I don't think has a leader. And so, yeah, in order for them to win, I do think Brandon Ingram needs to take more shots. I actually agree with him. Because you're not going to play through Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is a nice player, but he's not your primary scorer.
I think he can be. That's the thing.
Well, and what has that led to them being the last couple of years? They've been a bad team. They bring in Brandon Ingram now. He has a career year, and they've been the 5 seed this year. And reportedly, from what some of the NBA insiders are saying, the Cavs are very glad they got Toronto, and it's showing.
Yeah, I've read that they did not want Atlanta, and I think Atlanta showed why last night.
There's also, many people in that Cavs building feel like they got the best draw to any team and out of any bracket, and I somewhat agree. I mean, the Pistons, I don't think are anything too great, and I think if you picked a team that you wanted to play in the first round, I picked Toronto over Atlanta for sure.
Yeah, even if we end up facing Orlando in the second round, theoretically, I don't think they're like this terrifying team.
I agree with you.
Like, I get what you were saying earlier about Paolo Banchero, but, we saw it throughout the season when we played them. Like, we were able to match up with the Magic. It's not like they out-physicaled us.
I agree. Well, Josh, time to rip the Band-Aid off.
Was that WrestleMania or was that Adsomania? Because it felt like match and then 5 minutes of advertisement, 6-minute match, 5 minutes of advertisement. What the hell was that?
Okay. Can I ask you a quick question? What was the difference between the advertisements on ESPN when they were 5 minutes and the advertisements on Peacock when they were 5 minutes?
I have no idea.
Exactly my point. You noticed it because it's the WrestleMania name and the matches were shorter. And so there were more ads. And yes, I thought night 1 was one of the worst WrestleManias put on in recent history. I think it may be a bottom 5 WrestleMania in terms of one night in the history of the promotion. On the opposite, I thought night 2 was a top 10, top 15 night in the history of WrestleMania.
The only match I did not get to watch on night 2 was Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams because I was coming back after game 2 of Raptors Cavs, but I did get to watch every other match on night 2. Which, do I think Brock Lesnar actually retired? No. I think Gunther is going to goad him out of retirement. They will do that match at SummerSlam. That's where Brock actually retires.
I agree, but I do think this, two things. Number one, I think it's a way that you instantly babyface Brock if he theoretically retires. Because if he's not retired, you already heard what the fans said, right? Thank you, Brock. Thank you, Brock. That's an instant babyface Brock Lesnar then when he comes back. The other thing is, if he is retired and you don't want to run that Brock Lesnar Gunther match, or Brock truly, does not want to come back for SummerSlam in his home state, if that's the way you're going to go out, that is the perfect way to go out. 0 notes, 10 out of 10. That Obafemi Brock Lesnar match was exactly the way I wanted it to go. It was absolutely perfect. Oba gets the big entrance, beats on his chest. Brock delivers an F5. He doesn't even go for a cover. Oba pops right up, choke slam, the biggest fall from grace you ever see. 1, 2, 3, tip your cap, chef's kiss.
Yeah, I really liked that match, even though I don't like Brock Lesnar. I don't think he should be on TV due to all the stuff outside the ring, but we're not going to get into that because I don't want to. Even though it is part of the sport, I get it, but still, I don't want to address it. But anyway, so unfortunately, like I said, I missed the Sami Zayn Trick Williams match, but my favorite match of night 2, and I will admit, I really liked Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. I liked that the Usos did not get involved. I fully expected them to. But actually, my favorite match, even though it got turned into a street fight for some odd reason, was the Demon versus Dominic Mysterio.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the ladder match.
The ladder match was really good. Don't get me wrong, but there was just something about the Demon Finn Balor versus Dominic Mysterio that I just really liked.
I'm curious why, though, because I thought that was actually one of the and I thought it was a good match, but I thought in terms of extremeness, like I thought Fatu and McIntyre's unsanctioned match was a lot more extreme on Saturday night compared to this one.
See, I did not really like Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre. It felt very slow. It felt very clunky. It felt very rough. It felt like it was kind of dragging trying to get to the next spot. And I guess
my point is they used the toolbox, they used multiple tables, they used a wrench. All we really got in the Dom Finn match was a table slide and a couple of kendo stick shots.
Yeah, I know. And maybe they could have done a little bit more, but I liked the simplicity of it. Even though it was a street fight, they didn't go crazy with outside weapons and stuff.
And I also like that JD McDonough did not interfere. And that's the other thing I noticed. Night 1 was a lot of interference. And obviously the main event, which we'll get to. But night 2, outside of the little bit of interference you had with the women's championship match with Jade and Rhea, which was expected, almost every match ended clean.
Yeah. I mean, with the ladder match, I wasn't really expecting interference anyway.
Well, here's what I think. I think night 1 was all about the spectacle, right? The celebrities, the ads, the not a lot of in-ring action. This is the entertainment side of WrestleMania. And I thought night 2 was 2 parts. One of the parts was we're going to get these young guys, Obafemi, Javon Evans, Penta, and Trick Williams. We're going to get these 4 guys completely over. And then we're going to give you a match that match time alone might have equaled the total match times that went down for night 1 in Roman Reigns and CM Punk. And I'll tell you one thing I did like about this WrestleMania. That outside of Reigns and Punk, there wasn't a lot of guy hits a finisher, guy kicks out. Just because it's WrestleMania, he's got to kick out of a finisher. I thought even though the matches were shorter, they did protect a lot of the finishers. They did protect a lot of these young guys, and that's how you get the moves over.
From what I heard, the reason they did a short match with Stephanie McCurr and Liv Morgan is because both of them are banged up. But the weird part is Liv Morgan had a match last night on Monday Night Raw against Sol Ruca, and it went almost 15 minutes.
By the way, the Monday Night Raw roster got some big insurance last night with the additions of Joe Hendry, Sol Ruca, Ethan Page, Obafemi now officially becoming a part of that roster. It looks like Jacob Fatu is now officially a part of the Monday Night Raw roster. Where is that going to leave SmackDown? Because they almost have nobody left.
My biggest problem with like Backlash being 4 weeks after WrestleMania is like with Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns, for example, they're even if they build up this match really well, I'm not going to have any doubt that they're going to change the title because Roman just won it. Or, you know, if Liv defends her title at Backlash, they literally just gave her the title. Like,
can I counter that with when Roman Reigns won the first time and his first feud was with Jey Uso? We didn't really have a doubt that Roman was going to lose the championship to Jey Uso, but it was about the story of Jey Uso being included into the bloodline. This story with Jacob Fatu is not about the World Heavyweight Championship. It's about Jacob's place in the bloodline. And I love the fact that Jacob even said, Tribal Chief, I'm not going after the Tribal Chief. You are the Tribal Chief. I want more shoes. I want more clothes. I want more money for my family. I want more food. And I think that is what is going to lead us to the story where maybe you do bring Jacob Fatu into Roman's bloodline. Because remember, Jacob was in Solo's bloodline. He wasn't in Roman's bloodline. And there is bloodline connection there, obviously, with Roman and Fatu.
no, I totally understand what you're saying, but it's like having another premium live event this soon after WrestleMania, like, no. Like, again, I guess with Cody, there's more doubt to it, especially if they end up running the rematch with Randy. But
I would like to see Randy take the title at Backlash and then give it to Cody. I don't see a hating reason why you couldn't do a switch back and forth, especially with the way night one ended.
Which
By the way, what I find so funny about that, Pat McAfee pretty much basically confirmed on his show that TKO inserted him for that storyline. It wasn't a WWE creative decision. That TKO did that just to sell tickets, which shows you how out of pocket they are because WWE booked that match like, F you, TKO. We are completely running Pat McAfee out of this storyline.
And there's been reports that like TKO basically is in control.
Which is wild to me. And that it's so wild to me because none of those guys on that board have any experience whatsoever known about wrestling. It reminds me of Ted Turner at the end of the WCW days.
Like, it basically makes me believe Triple H is their scapegoat.
Which, I mean, here's the thing. Does that make Dana White their scapegoat? Or does Dana White truly book UFC? And why is it the same for UFC or different for WWE? Are they listening to, I don't know, one VKM, if you get those initials?
Totally, I understand those initials. But, like, you know, for example, you look at what happened on Dynamite. MJF had just successfully defended his title against Kenny Omega at Dynasty. And then what happens? He's told, oh, yeah, you have to defend the title tonight against Darby, and he ends up losing.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think Tony Khan did that to create buzz during WrestleMania week?
For sure.
Because there's a lot of people out there saying that AEW has had more momentum than they've had in the past 3 years, and it's because of MJF, and then they immediately dropped the title from MJF, and why do you do that?
I think he's going to win it right back at Double or Nothing because it is in New York, his hometown.
Here's my point. If you do that, then the same people that like that better not complain if they do the bait and switch with Randy and Cody, because it's the same exact thing.
No, I know. I understand that. But in terms of night one, I will say there were a couple matches that I was like, okay, I actually liked that. Number one, right off the bat, would be Gunther versus Seth Rollins. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
And I was actually okay with the way they did the Braun Breaker spot. I know I said before,
I was not.
See, and that's interesting because I know I said before that was my concern. Was like, this didn't need Braun Breaker. This didn't need Paul Heyman. But the way they told the story with Gunther laid out and him not necessarily knowing if Braun Breaker was there or not, Gunther doesn't care. Gunther just wants to win. He'll take advantage of any spear spot he can and just choke out Seth Rollins and take the victory for it.
See, with this match, I was like, no, do the Braun Breaker stuff after the match. Like, I don't want this to be about Braun Breaker costing Seth Rollins the match. I understood why they did it.
Let's be honest, they mostly did it to get the viral moment of him running 90 yards down the ramp.
Even though he completely missed and nearly...
Well, I wouldn't say he completely missed. It looked like he kind of got exhausted at the end and almost did like a half tackle.
Yeah, it almost looked like he was going to pull a Titus O'Neil from a few years ago.
But no, listen. I mean, night one and night two, I don't know if this was by design. I thought this going into it. I thought night two was better night on paper, and I thought night one was okay. That looked like it was two different companies booking the show.
It really did. Like, you had all the interference with Liv Morgan and Stephanie Vaquera, and that they didn't even get 10 minutes. And I was like, you've done a good job for the most part, making this a legit feud on Monday Night Raw, and then they only get 7 minutes? What?
I am of the belief if Randy Cody did not have the McAfee storyline, he did not get involved at all, and you just have the regular Randy Cody match that we now think we're going to get at Backlash, I think night one would have looked at differently, because I think everybody looked at the show based off the main event. That's how we mostly judge shows. If the main event is garbage, it's going to bring the whole show down. If the main event is good, it's going to raise the whole show up. Fair or not, that is mostly how we judge a show.
Yeah. I understand that.
By the way, I understood what they were trying to do, because when McAfee got taken out, I thought, oh, McAfee's going to come back. Okay. But I think what made that match so bad was, I don't know if Randy Orton was hurt or if he was just overselling, but it felt clunky because it felt like Orton wasn't moving.
Yeah. And from what I read, he was supposed to win that match, but then they decided to switch it in the last few days prior to Mania.
I think is, if they were going to continue with McAfee, Orton was going to win. And I think once they decided we don't want to do with Pat anymore, that's when they probably made the switch back to Cody.
It's very confusing. I have a take on all of WWE following WrestleMania. The only thing I'm interested in come Monday Night Raw is everything with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. That's the only thing that truly interests me like on the Monday Night Raw side.
You're not
Nothing
interested.
else.
You're not interested in Obafemi at all. You're not interested in Roman Reigns at all.
As of right now, no. Like I get what you're saying about the bloodline stuff with Jacob Fatu, but again, it's that same issue I was just telling you about. Like Roman just won the title. There's no jeopardy to it. I'm not like disregarding what you're saying, but it's like them doing Backlash so quickly after WrestleMania. I want a little bit of jeopardy.
I just got to say one word: cinema. Everything Roman Reigns touches is cinema.
Again, I agree with you on that. I like Roman Reigns. I do.
I am so excited that he is back full time. I cannot wait. I think Obafemi is going to win King of the Ring. That's my pick right now. And I think they're going to do Oba and Roman for one of the nights of SummerSlam. And like to your point, I think Gunther and Brock would be the main event of SummerSlam. But think about this. If at SummerSlam, you have Roman, Oba, maybe Cody, Randy, or maybe Cody, CM Punk. You could have Gunther, Brock Lesnar. Maybe they do Rhea Ripley and Io Sky with Rhea, who's never defeated Io Sky. That's 4 main event matches, and 2 of those matches are not going to main event the show.
Yeah, I get it. And maybe you do something with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker.
Yeah, I thought maybe a steel cage or something, blow out that feud. Like, I think for the second straight year, the SummerSlam card on paper is going to look better than the WrestleMania card.
Yeah. I'm genuinely like more interested in what happens with SummerSlam than I am with what was happening with WrestleMania. From what I read, and I think Paul Heyman confirmed this, the original plans were CM Punk versus Braun Breaker, and it was going to be Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns.
So this is what I was wondering. Was Seth and Roman going to be for the world title, and then Punk was going to be with Breaker for the WWE title? Were they going to take the title off Cody with Punk?
My guess is it was going to be Punk Breaker for the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Seth Roman for the WWE.
So what would have happened then? Punk would have had to take the title off of Rollins, and Rollins would have had to take the title off of Cody.
Yes.
Think about that alternative world.
Yeah, which I would have liked that better because I love the rivalry between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. I've told you how much I love that rivalry.
Well, remember what we pitched? Remember that Raw, to your point of Roman doesn't have a lot of stakes in winning the title. Remember we thought legitimately Braun Breaker could have beat Punk for the world title on that first Raw this year?
Oh, that Stranger Things episode, yeah.
Yes, they had Breaker versus Punk, and there was a lot of thoughts of Breaker could win the title, or Punk could retain. Maybe they do a disqualification. Maybe Seth Rollins wins the Rumble. Like, these were the conversations we were having going into WrestleMania.
Yeah. And I think the injuries really derailed whatever WWE was going to do. But I'm not even saying this as just an AEW fan. But after that show, I'm like, Double or Nothing's going to destroy WrestleMania. Because, like, we already have, AEW already announced their first match for Double or Nothing. And it's Konosuke Takeshita against Kazuchika Okada. We have been waiting for that match and that feud for so long, and it's finally happening.
I feel the need to once again point out when Josh talks about AEW, and the fans have noticed this, he always uses the royal we.
Okay. I was saying that as more just general wrestling fans, not specifically AEW.
Well,
in this case.
Well, 2 Japanese guys that I have never heard of. Though I got to say this. Speaking of a guy I never heard of, can we talk about real quick about maybe the most overact right now in WWE known as Danhausen?
That was freaking hilarious.
By the way, my favorite moment of the night, and I'm going to say it because it's notable that Michael Cole said it on commentary. These little people come out to the ring, and Michael Cole does call them midgets and says, before you cancel me on the internet, you clowns, they asked me to call them midgets. I thought that was the best line of the entire WrestleMania.
I agree with you. But excuse me. My only issue with that was like I don't even remember what the match was before Roman Punk. Remind me.
It was Rhea and Jade. And then they did that segment, which I was actually a little bit surprised that they did not have Cena interact with anybody on night one outside of Bianca Belair, which now Bianca Belair and Naomi's future children, I assume, are going to be feuding 20 years down the line.
Yeah. That's why it kind of surprised me that Montez Ford was on the show last night.
The Street Profits are back. And by the way, Angelo Dawkins looks ripped.
Yes.
Maybe that's out. Did we get the World Tag Team Championships now, an actual feud, the Vision against the Street Profits?
Probably. By the way, I did not like that opening match at all. It was just spot fest. But
I thought it worked because it got I Show Speed over. They did the again. I thought night one was all about moments, the influencers, the celebrities, the entertainment. It was not about wrestling. Night two was about wrestling, and that's why I think this WrestleMania may go down to the hardest one to rank, especially when you look at the 2-night WrestleManias. Because I do think in totality, I would argue it was better than last year. In totality. However, and I said this last year, Josh, I don't even remember me saying this. I think from about WrestleMania 35-ish and even 36, I thought was good, even given the circumstances with COVID. Through 40, we were blessed with great WrestleMania, great WrestleMania, great WrestleMania. That when 41 was bad and 42 was not great overall, you could say. WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl. Like this year's Super Bowl, I said it for weeks. I was not invested in Patriots Seahawks. I did not care. I wanted to get the Super Bowl over with. Some years you're going to have that. And sometimes there's stretches where you have that. We've had stretches in the NBA Finals where before Game 7 last year in the Thunder and Pacers, the NBA Finals were a foregone conclusion for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Prior to last year, the last time we got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals was us and the Warriors.
And real quick, I want to bring this up because you're a hockey guy. From my understanding, the NHL playoffs have been great, and there's been a ton of upsets.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Philadelphia Flyers are up 2-0 against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I heard that. And both those games were in Pittsburgh, correct?
Yeah. So the next two games are going to be in Philly.
What seed is that? Is that a 3-6 or how do they do it in the NHL? Because my brother was telling me because he watches the segment that the NHL seeding for hockey is BS. He's a Penguins fan as well, by the way.
I hate how the seeding works in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it's the two division winners play the wild cards. So Carolina won the Metropolitan Division. They are playing Ottawa, who was the second wild card. Meanwhile, Buffalo, who all credit to the Buffalo Sabres, they broke a massive playoff drought. I think it was almost 15 years. Because if I remember correctly, the last time they were in the playoffs was like 2011. So it was around 15 years, might have been like 14. But because they're the number one, they won the Atlantic Division, they're playing the Boston Bruins, who were the number one wild card. So that means Pittsburgh and Philadelphia are playing each other because Pittsburgh was number 2 in the Metro and Philly was number 3. And in the Atlantic, Tampa Bay is playing Montreal. Tampa is number 2 and Montreal is number 3. It's the same way in the Western Conference. Carolina,
do they design that as a way to get theoretically more even first round matchups? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
I don't know. I hate it. Because in the first round, we're getting Dallas, Minnesota. The Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild were two of the best teams in the National Hockey League. They both had finished with over 100 points. There is no way that should be a first-round series.
Is that like the equivalent? Like, give me the NBA playoff equivalent. Is that like Nuggets Spurs round one?
Yeah, that would be like Nuggets Spurs round one.
See, that's why I think from listening to you, it sounds like it's designed to get better first-round matchups to get people into the playoffs.
Yes, but again, like...
Which I don't agree with. I think it should be straight 1 through 8 seeding.
Yes, like Minnesota is the number.
Because you're punishing the team then that got the number 1 seed. There's no reward for that.
Yeah, because like Colorado, they finished not only with the best record in the Western Conference, but they finished with the best record in all of the NHL. So they won the President's Trophy. They get to play LA in the first round. Colorado will take care of them probably in a sweep because LA just has playoff issues. Colorado is just that good with Cale McCarr, Nathan McKinnon, amongst others.
How about Denver sports coming back? You got the Avalanche, you got the Nuggets, the Broncos, and then there's the Rockies.
Yep. By the way, the Monsters also made the playoffs. They will take on the Syracuse Crunch in the North Division semifinals. The first 2 games will be here in Cleveland, but then the next 3 will be up in Syracuse because Syracuse finished second in the North Division and the Monsters finished third. So Syracuse has home ice. But
wait,
yeah,
they do home ice that way? They go 2-3 and that's it?
that it's just for the first round.
That is strange.
Because
that
it's
is strange.
I know. So it's weird with the Calder Cup playoffs. Like Toronto and Rochester are going to play each other, but that's a best of 3.
But yet the Monsters are a best of 5?
Yes. It doesn't change until to a best of 7 until you get to the conference finals.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense, but I don't know why in the same round it's best of 3 and a best of 5. Why aren't they the same?
The best of 3 is like the round right before the division semifinals.
Oh, so the Monsters already advanced that, or do they get a bye?
The Monsters, they didn't have to play in the division.
Okay, so it's like a wild card. It's a best of 3 wild card then.
Yes. The Monsters are already in the division semifinals.
Okay, that makes sense. It's sort of like baseball then.
Yes. But again, I hate the way the Stanley Cup playoffs are formatted. But make sure you tune in tonight because Buffalo is playing Boston in Game 2 in Buffalo. The Sabres.
Yeah, I saw that scene in Game 1. Did they come back? Was that in overtime?
No, that wasn't in overtime. They were down 2-0 entering the third period, and they came back scoring 4 goals in the third to win that.
I saw the fans over there smashing for tables.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, Buffalo has been yearning for playoff hockey. That's one of the best playoff and overall atmospheres in the NHL, easily. I've never been to a Sabres game. I want to, but I hope they have a deep playoff run. I really do. Here's an interesting note. Did you know that the Sabres actually play O Canada at their home games?
No, I didn't know that.
I just learned that. They play O Canada at their home games. I guess because Niagara is like right on the border. Buffalo is essentially right on the border of Canada, I guess. Something like that.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up with that. It was a very fun show tonight. We went a little bit long, obviously, but we talked about a lot of different things. We'll be back next week. We're breaking down everything in sports, including the NBA playoffs and the NFL draft. For Josh Ungar, host of the Sports Room Talk Show, Ungar to the Max, I'm Brandon Willis, host of Brandon's World. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye-bye.